During the Black Swordsman arc, when Guts takes the Behelit away from Vargas and part ways with him, Puck tells him, "I think that people need to keep living. You see, I don't really know much about life, but living for the future is more important than trying to avenge the past, I guess." Berserk is dark. Like, really dark. And even that might feel to be an understatement for Berserk fans. From literally the first chapter to the latest chapters, the story has been a non-stop darkness rollercoaster ride. So considering all of this, it might come as a slight surprise that the main underlying message of Berserk, that the most emphasized motif in this very dark story, is a surprisingly beautiful and positive one. It is a very simple yet touching message. It is to keep living. It is one of those things where you don't notice it until someone else mentions it, and once you hear it, you start to notice it like everywhere. This was literally shown from the very first chapter of Berserk. When Guts finally slays the Snake Lord, he quotes a very memorable line. "Like you said, humans are weak. We die easily. But no matter how weak we are, even if we were being chopped up to bits or being stabbed to death, we still want to live." Being placed in a violent world, where one is seemingly enraptured by death non-stop, seeing other people around you constantly die, Guts serves as a disruption to this whole world. If you haven't checked out my other video, End of Berserk, go watch it if you haven't already. The way I'm stating how the message to keep living is the main theme of Berserk may seem to be a contradiction. However, this message actually fits nicely together with the main message in that video. This theme to simply keep living serves as a dichotomy to the endless suffering theme. While the suffering in the world may seem overwhelming and cruel, there is always some reason to keep living, which makes it worth all of the suffering one endures. Things may seem to be at the worst, but there is always a reason to keep pursuing and to keep trying to prevail. This simple message is also something which is consistent throughout Guts' whole life. Even looking at his birth, he was placed in a situation he was supposed to die in. With his real biological mother being ritualized on a tree, Guts should have inconsiderably died. But as you all know, Shishu comes in, takes him in and raises him, ultimately saving his life. Guts also prolonged his destiny on the last night he was with the bandits. After killing Gambino and falling off the cliff, Guts seemingly lost his motivation to live. He tells himself he might as well just died when he fell to the ground, that there's only bad stuff in front of him, that he has nowhere left to go. When he gets surrounded by the wolves, he tells himself, it's over. This is it. However, Guts' survival instinct empowers him to fight back, and he can't even make sense of it. Again, he should have died considering the circumstances, but he somehow, and in some way, prevails. Heck, this was even shown in the shortest arc in Berserk, Springflower of Distant Days. In this arc, Guts gets exploited and thrown into prison. Once again, he is placed in a situation where he loses his will to keep living. But through meeting the elf, Chich, Guts makes it an objective to get out of the prison somehow, so that he could reunite Chich with her friends. Again, he regains some sort of a motivation to live. This is mainly shown through Guts since he is the main character, but in a very interesting way, through his journey, he empowers other people to adopt and live out this idea. This theme is not always directly and literally shown. It's not that our characters are literally always put in a situation where they are about to die. Instead, at certain times, it is represented in the way some characters, who had something to live for, something they were using as a motivation to live, get it taken away from them. This causes our characters to reevaluate everything, to reflect whether they should give up. But in the end, our characters always persist. For example, this idea is very clearly represented through the character, Farnese. Farnese was initially very committed to her faith, letting it dictate all her actions. But through meeting Guts, she starts to question these beliefs, and by the end of the back and forth conflict in the conviction arc, she completely abandons her belief and decides to follow Guts, in hopes of regaining some other thing. As she says herself, "I want to learn, a way to survive in the darkness, where the light of that order does not reach." Another character who represented this was Shirke. When Shirke originally separated from Flora to deal with the Trolls attack on Enoch Village, It was only supposed to be a sort of training for her, but when she comes back to the mansion of the spirit tree, she finds it under attack by the apostles. Due to this, Shirke is forced to leave Flora to her fate, and she is left with no option but to remain on Guts' side. Just like the other characters, she loses what she was living for, and she very clearly expresses her sorrow with her actions at the beach. But she prolongs and finds something else to live for, to help Guts and the rest of the crew. And this further relates to an interesting way Guts' journey and motivations diverges. Guts' current journey in the main storyline was originally motivated by his desire to kill Griffith in an act of revenge. However, along his adventure, a number of characters, little by little, unexpectedly joins him upon his journey to create a team. And as the journey continues, he relearns how to rely and trust others, and this in turn recovers his love and care towards the ones closest to him. This all gives him another motivation to live, to simply protect these people, and he realizes that he needs the others just as much as they need him. It is worth noting that Guts is not the only person who influences others in this way. This theme to keep living is also very interestingly shown through the elves, particularly through Puck and at one point, Chich. While his actual importance has admittedly stagnated in the second half of the story, Puck originally served as an angel who, unlike Guts, explicitly and verbally expressed this message. Apart from the interaction with Vargas referenced at the start of the video, a specific instance where Puck showed this idea was in the ending parts of the Lost Children arc. When the Misty Valley is caught in flames, Jill seemingly gives up and accepts her death. She says, "That's right, I am stupid. I knew it was true. See, didn't you even say so? Now I regret everything. I knew this too. Enough. Leave me alone. Go away and leave. Stupid me." But Puck doesn't accept any of this. He uncharacteristically yells and tells her, "If you sit there like that, you're just gonna die. You didn't come this far just to die, did you?" And going back to Springflower of Distant Days, while the other elf, Chich, was only present in the story for 3 chapters, she still represented this message in a very important yet resonant way. As mentioned earlier, in this arc, Guts loses his hope to keep living, but through meeting Chich, he sees someone who, unlike him, has somewhere she belongs to and wants to be a part of. This leads Guts to make it an objective to get out of the prison and to reunite Chich with her friends. The saddest part of this arc is that in the end, she doesn't make it. It shows a sense of irony that Chich, someone who had something to live for, ends up giving her life away for someone who didn't. Perhaps it's this very theme to keep living which leads countless people to resonate with Guts and the story of Berserk. Maybe you have been in a situation where it felt as though there was nothing in front of you anymore, and it felt like you should give up. But after reading the story and seeing what Guts and the other characters resisted through, it influenced you to do the same. We are all more than likely to face difficulties in the future, but it is extremely important and worthy to keep coming back to this message, to keep living, so you can get through them easier. While life may seem meaningless, and at certain times it will feel as though everything is going against you, in the end, although nothing good is promised in life, the only thing we should, or can do, is to keep living, to keep persisting through the difficult times, in hopes of a better future one day. This was the main message the master manga author tried to express in his story. Thank you, Kentaro Miura Sensei.